I am so conflicted on this one, you guys. I want to give it a good, like a really good rating because there's so many good things about it. I just can't. And I know this may be a super unpopular opinion, but I have to go with what I genuinely think, and I think it's a 4 out of 6. Hey you guys, welcome to the review of Pendulum. If you like me or you are a decent person in general, go ahead and subscribe down below because it really does help me out and helps me do what I love. If there's anything I can do to help you do what you love, let me know and I'll do my best. If you know my rating system, it's out of 6 pips and I think this is 4. Still good, still better than average. I just don't think it's going to go down in history as a great game in my book. Let's talk about a couple reasons why. There are some really great things about Pendulum. It's very unique. It has a unique feel to it. It's just different from a lot of games that you've played, and it actually takes real-time gameplay to a really interesting place where it's a little bit less about the franticness and a little bit more about like your ability to think on your feet and slide in a couple extra moves than your opponents. Now, where I think it falls a little bit flat is on its accessibility. So in the rules, it recommends that if you're playing this game with somebody who hasn't played before, then you should play without it being timed, without the real-time element. Huge red flag for me. I'm just not going to teach this to many people. I'm not going to want to play this with many people. If we're playing it untimed, which is by far the most interesting thing happening here, if this is just a worker placement game, not great. It's really not. It's very basic when it comes to worker placement. And so the real time is what makes this interesting. And if every time I introduce it to a new player, if I have to play it without that element, I'm just not going to want to introduce them to it. I'm not the kind that gets together with a super regular gaming group all the time. So I just don't think it's going to make it to my table that often. And I do not want to spend the time doing like 2 or 3 rounds to get people comfortable with it. So that's not a flaw of the designer. That's not a flaw of Stonemaier Games. It's just, maybe it's not the best mesh of mechanics if that's the case. So that's one reason why I didn't give it full pips. The other is the components. Now there are a lot of beautiful components. The metal star piece, I mean, the art is really well done. The paper that everything's printed on is very like linen finish. They did some awesome finishes on a lot of the things. All of the plastic pieces are just boring. Now I've gone over this on Instagram several times that I just don't understand why the meeples are plastic. It's been addressed that like wood also has its challenges as far as cost and reliability issues, stuff like that. It still doesn't explain that if you're paying for the tooling of those little plastic pieces, why wouldn't you add more detail? I mean, the part line going through the center makes it so they don't stand up exactly right all the time. You have the faces, the front and back, that it would be free to put in some other elements. I mean, you could put like scribe lines of clothes or some kind of other details on there, but they're just flat, which shows kind of like the wobbliness of the plastic. Even a texture to give it a little bit of a different touch would have been interesting, but some of the design points feel a little bit lazy to me. So those two things, I mean, granted, they're small things. It's still a great game. The biggest thing is that I'm gonna have a hard time introducing this to new people. What I'm talking about, the plastic, first of all, these are very, very thick pieces. One of the flaws of that is you can see right in the chest of this meeple, it's a little bit sunken. That is a shrinkage issue due to the thickness of the plastic. They didn't have to be that thick. I mean, they're kind of absurdly thick when it comes to a meeple. The other part is these were all attached. They were injection molded, attached to a sprue, and right there in the bottom is where they clipped them off of the sprue. So what that means is there's a little bit of a plastic buildup there, and they don't sit exactly flat. They kind of rock back and forth, which, small thing, but they're little things like these that I feel like just should have been caught from a design perspective. The other thing is, because they didn't put a texture, it's just flat, shiny plastic, they get beat up and scratched. I mean, I haven't played this game that much, and I'm really gentle with games, but they just start looking pretty haggard pretty fast. So once again, little things, but it's these little things that really push a game up and into the upper rankings for me. But overall, it's a solid game. I am happy to have it in my collection, and I think a lot of people would be. I don't think you should go out and buy this without playing it first and really thinking about whether it's one that'll make it to your table often. I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll get it to the table often, but there are just a lot of other games that are easier to teach, that don't have really like a learning curve, and that are just going to be a better fit for me and my group. So I may be the exception, but those are my thoughts. I really want to like Pendulum more, and I do enjoy playing it, but I just think there are others that shine a little bit better. One thing that I may harp on a little bit more than other people is kind of the learnability and the communication of certain elements of the game. One thing that really bugged me about, here's one of the player boards. One thing that really bothered me is the colors for your victory points are the exact same colors as your resources. They have nothing to do with each other. Gold down here does not equate to your victory point tokens on this. I forget what the yellow track is called, but they're the exact same color, look like they go together. And so somebody that's new trying to play the game, it's a difficult thing to understand, and there were several times that we did the wrong action because we saw the color, and also they're the exact same colors that are on the income tracks, which also are, I mean, they aren't completely irrelevant to each other, but it's confusing. So anyway, there were several times that we got income when we were supposed to move up victory points, just little things like that. Just simply making them different colors, or making the victory points not have specific colors and just be symbol based would have also been a fine choice, but it led to a bit of confusion and a bit of a learning curve, which also led me to take away the accessibility pip.